Hello everyone, I hope all of you are doing well. I have a new video for you today with a new story, which happens to be quite ominous and unsettling. This tale stained the reputation of France in Africa on the continent. Meanwhile, France's reputation in Africa is something we all know. However, this is primarily the story of Felix Moumié, a Cameroonian political figure and activist who fought for his nation's independence. He was brutally shot. Felix Moumié was born in 1925 in Fouban, Cameroon. He grew up in a very humble family. Still, he was an exceptionally bright child. At just 16, he passed an entrance exam to a higher education institution in Brazzaville. Thus, he went there to study medicine. Soon after, he arrived in Dakar to continue studying medicine. It was in Dakar that he truly encountered his first ideals and anti-colonial independence ideas. But regardless, he did not forget why he was in Dakar. So in 1947, he earned his medical degree. And at just 22 years old, yes, 22, the guy is a doctor. He then arrives in Cameroon and works in the Kribi region. And it's there that he will meet someone who will literally change his life. Indeed, Ruben Niobe, a leader of the UPC, the Union of Populations of Cameroon, which was a party advocating for Cameroon's independence, this leader will travel there to see what's happening in the region. And he will meet Felix Moumié, who already had some ideas about his country's independence. They will have a long discussion and there will be a connection, and this will mark the start of his political career. That same year, he will also meet Marthe, who will become his wife. It should be noted that Marthe was not just a wife. She was a woman who was his assistant and also his secretary in his political career. As she was educated and aware of the political landscape, she was truly a real support and a genuine asset. So Felix Moumié's political career begins like this. He starts taking action. And clearly, this does not please the colonial administration. The French come with their ideas and ways of doing things. Clearly, the UPC does not align with that. The colonial administration sees Felix Moumié as a problem, so they will try to destabilize him by sending him to remote areas to discourage him, but nothing helps. The situation will deteriorate when the party's headquarters is attacked, resulting in casualties. The party leaders will scatter across the world in exile. Felix Moumié and his wife Marthe arrive in Guinea-Conakry, where they will make their home during exile. But from his point of exile, Felix Moumié wants to restore the party's reputation, as the party has been dissolved and is not recognized internationally. Thus, he truly wants to take actions that will make a difference. In the mid-60s, at the dawn of independence, he clearly states that the announced independence of Cameroon is merely a facade, and that President Amadou Ahidjo is just a pawn of France. According to him, he is not at all pleased with what's happening in Cameroon then. He chooses to travel to Switzerland to meet emissaries and political figures. He meets with organizations to show them that the UPC is an authentic party, a real political organization, and that its struggle is truly noble. So he arrives in Switzerland, where he encounters a journalist who has been hounding him for quite some time, whom he even met in Ghana. The journalist is desperate for an interview to discuss the party. This is perfect because Felix Moumié is looking for visibility for the party. So they will schedule a meeting at a fancy restaurant in the city, but it should also be noted that Felix Moumié's actions have drawn the ire of the French secret services. And when the French secret services start watching you, believe me, it's never a good sign. The French secret services knew that Felix Moumié was arriving in Switzerland, and they also knew that after Switzerland, he would go to Cairo. And this detail is very, very, very important in the story. So the famous journalist insists, and Felix Moumié finally agrees to meet on such day, at such date, at such time, at a fancy restaurant in the city. The meeting is arranged. As agreed, Felix Moumié arrives at the restaurant with a party associate and the journalist, a French journalist, and he sits down. Felix Moumié orders a cocktail, and just after he orders his cocktail, within 5 minutes, he gets a call. At that time, there were no cell phones, so he goes to take the call. The issue is, there's no one on the line. At that moment, the noted journalist is distracting Felix Moumié's companion and takes the opportunity to add a poison capsule to Felix Moumié's drink. When Felix Moumié came back, I think he was careful, so he didn't have the cocktail. As the evening went by, they ordered wine and the atmosphere felt more trusting. And while they were all chatting, The famous journalist distracted the two friends again by showing them articles he had written, supposedly from magazines, and he used the moment to put another capsule in the wine glass since he thought Felix Moumié wouldn't have the famous cocktail. So finally Felix Moumié drinks the wine, consumes a dose of poison, and I think the atmosphere was much more relaxed and serene afterward. He also consumed the cocktail, so that's 2 doses of poison. This detail is very important for the rest of the video. At 11 o'clock, they all parted ways, each going their own direction. Felix Moumié is a righteous activist. He has noble principles, but he is still a man and a Cameroonian. You know how Cameroonians are known. I'm joking, right? He loved women and father. So he had a mistress named Liliane. He goes to see his mistress and they spend the night together. Around 5 in the morning, he begins to feel pain in his stomach. He starts to experience paralysis in his legs. He is swiftly taken to a private clinic, and it is there that, before being plunged into a coma, he will utter a number of words including euthalium and the red hand, and naturally you start to ask a number of questions. You ask yourself who this journalist was, what euthalium is, and what the red hand is. First, let's discuss the journalist. He was not really a journalist. You figured it out. He was a spy for the French Secret Services. His name was William Bechtel. He served in the military and even fought in World War II. He specialized in Africa, so you understand that he was there to assassinate Felix Moumié. Regarding the Red Hand, it was a secret French organization, like the Black Hand you might know from history books if you studied history in school. Thus, the Red Hand's goal was to genuinely destabilize criminal groups, such as drug traffickers. They also intended to destabilize and create discord in certain European nations. And also, as always, the African leaders who opposed France's presence in their countries. You understand the project was very, very grim. Now let's talk about thallium. Thallium is a poison that, unlike arsenic, which is quite famous, thallium is a poison that, when ingested in low doses, takes days and days to take effect. And this is not trivial. The Secret Service knew very well that Felix Moumié, after that evening, had 1 or 2 days before going to Cairo. Thus, it was intended for him to take this poison in small amounts and die in Cairo. They would have blamed the notorious Arabs. But then, the infamous spy, fearing the plan would fail, administered a second dose, and Felix Moumié consumed 2 doses. This led to his death shortly thereafter in October-November of the 1960s. So when he died, his wife in Guinea took the assassination of her husband seriously. She wants to go to Switzerland, but it's very complicated. Bringing the body back to Cameroon is nearly impossible. President Sékou Touré will pay the expenses to bring the body back to Guinea. Regardless, the assassin of Felix Moumié was never pursued because the Swiss police took almost a month to initiate the investigations. Therefore, he had time to flee to France. And of course, in France, he was safe. A few years later, he made some mistakes. He was in Belgium, so he was caught. He was tried. He had a good lawyer. He was not convicted. In short, I won't go into that. But remember that Felix Moumié was a Cameroonian activist leader who wanted independence for his country, just independence for his country, was treacherously assassinated. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't hesitate to subscribe. Feel free to leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube page. Until then, take care.